Faith had always been cautious when it came to online dating. After a string of unsuccessful relationships, her best friend Lily convinced her to try something new: 90-day love link. It's where serious people meet, Lily had insisted. Faith had laughed, thinking the name sounded more like a reality TV show than a matchmaking app. A few days in, Loren's profile caught her attention. It wasn't flashy, just a man standing by a lake, his face partially hidden behind sunglasses. His bio was unassuming, too, looking for someone to share the little joys in life. It wasn't his profile that convinced her to swipe, but his first message. "I feel like you'd understand the beauty in simple things." There was something earnest about his words. Unlike the usual surface-level compliments or cheesy pickup lines, Loren seemed thoughtful. Intrigued, Faith responded. The first few days of chatting were pleasant. Loren was attentive, asking about her job as a middle school art teacher and her passion for photography. But as their conversations deepened, Faith noticed a peculiar pattern. Loren seemed unusually interested in her feet. "I saw your photo by the beach," he texted one evening. "Your toes look so delicate in the sand." Faith chuckled to herself. She wasn't used to receiving compliments like that. "Thanks, I guess," she replied. Over time, the comments became more frequent. He asked if she painted her toenails often, what shoes she liked, and even if she'd ever tried reflexology. Faith mentioned it to Lily, who laughed it off. "Every guy has a thing," she said. "If this one's into feet, it's harmless, right?" Faith wasn't sure. But Loren was charming in other ways, and when he suggested meeting in person, she agreed, choosing a public cafe just in case. Faith arrived early, choosing a table near the window where she could keep an eye on the door. Loren walked in a few minutes later, carrying a small bouquet of daisies. His smile was warm, but there was a nervous energy about him. "You're even more beautiful in person," he said, handing her the flowers. "Thank you," Faith replied, brushing off her unease. Their conversation started smoothly. Loren talked about his work as a freelance designer, his love for hiking, and his dream of illustrating children's books. Faith began to relax until Loren leaned forward, his gaze shifting to her sandals. "Your feet are even more perfect than I imagined," he said softly. Faith froze. She forced a laugh, trying to lighten the mood. "Thanks, I guess. That's an unusual compliment." Loren didn't laugh. Instead, he reached under the table, brushing his hand against her ankle. "Can I touch them?" Faith pulled back, her heart racing. No, that's not appropriate." Loren looked embarrassed, mumbling an apology. But the damage was done. Faith ended the date shortly after, leaving with a promise to talk soon that she had no intention of keeping. Faith thought ignoring Loren would be enough to discourage him. She was wrong. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I just felt a connection with you." When she didn't reply, the messages became more frequent. "Please let me explain. I can't stop thinking about you." Faith blocked his number, but Loren found other ways to reach her. He began commenting on her social media posts, leaving cryptic messages like, "Your feet tell a story I'd love to read." Then one evening, a package arrived on her doorstep. Inside was a pair of handcrafted sandals and a note. "For your beautiful feet. I hope these make you smile." Faith's stomach churned. She called the police, but they dismissed her concerns. "It's creepy, but it's not a crime," the officer said. Faith felt helpless. She deleted her social media accounts and started double-locking her doors, but the feeling of being watched never left her. Late one night, Faith was jolted awake by a noise outside her window. She lived on the second floor, but the sound of shuffling footsteps sent a wave of panic through her. Grabbing her phone, she dialed 911, her voice trembling as she explained the situation. The operator assured her that an officer would be dispatched, but the minutes dragged on like hours. It was faint at first, barely audible, but it grew louder, more insistent. Faith crept toward the door, peering through the peephole. Her breath caught in her throat. Loren stood on the other side, his face pale and wild-eyed. "Faith," he called softly. "I need to see you. Please just let me in." Faith backed away, her hands shaking. "The police are on their way," she shouted through the door. Loren's expression darkened. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, his voice trembling. I need to feel close to you. To them." Suddenly, the door rattled as Loren tried to force it open. Faith screamed, clutching her phone as she begged the dispatcher to hurry. When the police arrived, Loren was gone. They found scratches on the doorframe and muddy footprints, leading away from the building. Faith was shaken but relieved, thinking the worst was over. The next morning, Faith's phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. It was a video. With trembling hands, she opened it. The footage showed Loren sitting in a dimly lit room, holding one of her old shoes. "I can't live without you," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "You don't understand what you mean to me." The video ended abruptly, leaving Faith in a state of shock. 2 days later, the police called her with devastating news. Loren's body had been found in the woods behind her apartment. He had taken his own life. Alongside his body was a journal filled with letters to Faith, pages and pages detailing his obsession, his loneliness, and his belief that they were destined to be together. The final entry read, "I'll be with you forever now. You won't forget me." Faith moved out of her apartment a month later, but the trauma lingered. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even in her new home. Loren's death haunted her, not just because of its tragedy, but because of the guilt it left behind. Could she have done something differently? Should she have seen the warning signs sooner? Every so often, she'd catch herself looking at her feet, a chill running down her spine as she remembered Loren's words. "They're a map of your soul." Faith would never wear open-toed shoes again.